everybody on the plane was nervous, but I'd been drinking since lunch, and I was like, take it down, I don't care. You ever had one of those days?
He just give it up.
Hit something hard, I don't want to limp away from this wreck.
Here we go now.
Why is this funny? My week this week, and so I'm pulling from someone that I probably overdosed on in the early 2000s when that whole blue collar comedy tour started up. You know, every one of those guys are brilliant, but this one in particular is sort of a throwback to me of Jerry Clower and storytellers and just that Southern tradition of being able to read a phone book and it being funny just because of the way you deliver it. And that's right. Ron White.
Ron White, the classic. The classic. And never, the one thing I still don't know this day, because I haven't researched him at all, just heard of a lot of his stuff, but the guy who comes across as a drunk. Yeah. But is he really a drunk?
Well, according to, if you believe his podcast, when he's on Rogan and some of these other stuff, he's now like 2 or 3 years sober. But he had.
So he really was a drunk.
He really was a drunk. He went off and saw, and I wish River was here. He could tell you, it starts with some sort of thing that they give you, and you go out in the woods and you see this guru, and it's sort of like a psychedelic. Yeah. And it causes you to sort of have to deal with inner demons and stuff like that. And it sort of, it worked for him. It got him straight because the doctor said, you either stop drinking or you're going to die.
Well, it's funny because I just always assumed he
thought it was a shtick.
The glass in his hand, that it's probably not even alcohol. It's probably
You
tea.
probably thought it was like, what's his face from the 70s, that roast? What was his? Dean Martin.
Yeah.
Because Dean Martin,
they always did it. That, you remember even back in the day, like Jerry Lewis, I think, used to smoke on stage. Yeah. And those guys that would carry a cigarette. It's all kind of a shtick just to kind of give them that look. And I see comics even today a lot of times do that when they'll have it. And I will say, if you're going to use a shtick, don't ever put a straw in it. I've seen some guys do that. There's no way to be cool and drink from a straw.
You know, what's so funny is he's reported and said he's an alcoholic. Matter of fact, if you haven't seen the episode with him on Sirius XM talking about, it was about 2 or 3 weeks after Robin Williams had died. And he got really emotional, and he's not sober in this interview yet.
Is this his podcast?
No, he was being interviewed on a podcast. You can just say Ron White XM talking about sobriety or Robin Williams, and he'll pull up. But he's basically talking about his whole. He's got a bit that says, I tried sobriety once and didn't,
right,
and didn't work out. And he talks about Robin Williams finding out that he's trying to get sober, comes and meets with him because he finds out he's playing in San Francisco. So meets with him and everything. Robin Williams don't know him, never met him, but just knew he's a stand-up comedian, had a sort of soft spot for him. Goes there and he says, just talks to him for a while and about, how he has struggled off and on with, drugs and alcohol and all this other stuff. And he goes, and all this time he's pouring all this love and acceptance into me, and I'm not even knowing that this guy is suffering from, his medical conditions and his depression, because he's talking about this about 2 or 3 weeks after, Robin took his life. And so it's pretty interesting, and he gets sort of teared up, and I think that was the beginning of him trying to get sober.
I haven't seen any of his stuff. I don't know if he has new stuff now or whatever, but
they say if you believe the podcast, like Joe Rogan and some of those guys, that he's still got it.
Wow,
he is still, and ironically, does
he still play the same character?
He's still got the same character.
The glass.
He's got the glass and everything, but he's not drinking. That's
interesting, because always when I would see it, just even the way he would act drunk, he'd shake his head and like Carly could,
the slur and all that
you
other
just
stuff.
Assume he really was just playing a character, and that in my mind I was like, he probably doesn't even drink.
Yeah,
that's what he makes it funnier.
Yeah, it does. And what's so funny is he has a tequila company now, which is even crazier. But this is a very famous bit that I wanted to play. You know, we had to pick. You know, it's hard to pick from Ron. And he goes, "What can we play that we can get away with?"
Right.
But this one is one that is just from beginning to end. I think it's hysterical. It's one of those that had me in stitches every time to this day I watch it. So let's get your take on it.
So anyway, I flew here from Flagstaff because my manager doesn't own a globe. I flew here on a plane that big, like a pack of gum with 8 people in it. Just. We took off from the Flagstaff Airport Hair Care and Tire Center there. We're traveling at half the speed of smell. We got passed by a kite. There was a goose behind us, and the pilot was going, "Go around."
That's classic.
We get halfway to Phoenix, we got to go back. It's a 9-minute flight. Can't pull it off with this equipment. We had some engine trouble. We lost some oil pressure in one of the engines, and they told us about it over the speaker system of the plane, which was stupid because they could have just went, "Hey, we lost some oil pressure."
The surprise, the twist.
Heard ya. It was weird. Everybody on the plane was nervous, but I'd been drinking since lunch, and I was like, "Take it down. I don't care." You ever had one of those days?
He just give it up.
Hit something hard. I don't want to limp away from this wreck. The guy sitting next to me is losing his mind. Apparently, he had a lot to live for. He goes, "Hey man, hey man, if one of these engines fails, how far will the other one take us?" "All the way to the scene of the crash."
Very nice. Which is pretty handy.
Which is pretty handy because that's where we're headed. I bet we beat the paramedics there by a half hour.
There's so much fun.
Yes.
To me, it's a story, but just about every 10 seconds, 7 to 10 seconds in that story, there's a punch.
Right.
You know, from
Very quick.
Yeah.
Yeah, and what makes it funny to me is he uses the technique to, it's the exaggeration technique. So the whole thing is about this small plane.
Yes.
And in another bit that he does on this joke, he even sets it up with, he had a near miss. He almost was in a plane crash. Well, actually, he almost died in a plane crash, but he actually didn't. He was, not even. Never even got hurt.
Never even got hurt.
So he sets all these things up. But the interesting thing was he talks about how small the plane is. And then everything from that point is exaggeration.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do exaggerations on everything. I'm going faster than the speed of smell. Yeah. There's a goose that's passing. We're that slow.
The pilot's like, "Come on."
Yeah. On a kite.
Got passed by a kite.
Yes. So it's like, here are all these exaggerations of how slow it is. And that's a comedy technique that he does a lot.
It's only a 9-minute flight and he can't pull it off.
And it's just, that is a slow plane.
Then it's almost like a country song, because you know how country songs can play on words and phrases. And so the guy goes, "Well, how far do you think this plane will take us? One engine will take us?" And he goes, "All the way to the sun."
We're not going to make it. And so you might as well be ready to die.
And then he's drunk.
Well, he's using that same technique he is. He's the drunk. I don't even, even a suicide joke.
Hit something hard. I don't want to rip off.
I'd rather die than limp.
And he goes, this guy's got a lot to live for.
I don't, but he does.
Apparently. He's got a lot to I mean, everything about that to me, just like, it's just
Yes.
one punch after the next.
It's a brilliant, little, short, quick. He's hitting them left and right, using a lot of different techniques. The right turn, the surprise that happened there with the pilot.
Yeah.
You know, over the intercom, you don't see it coming. He could have just turned around.
Just like, hey, we're
Right here. I've been in one of those planes. I know exactly what he's talking about. It's, it's frightening.
Yeah.
All in itself. But
No,
yeah,
from
that's
beginning to end, the premise, the delivery, that cadence that he's got. Like I said, I think he could read the phone book and make something funny.
Yeah, and he's plays his stick out really well with the drunk thing. He just is. He's a guy that always is going to ride that theme. He's smart enough too, because again, I heard him tell this at a different location, and at the other location, he caters it to the audience.
He changes the geography and everything.
Yeah, it's all about I'm going to cater to the people here, make it feel like it's special to them, and using places that they're familiar with, which is what he did there when he was in Arizona, and I saw the one in Houston. So yeah, that's just to me smart techniques to get the crowd involved, and they understand it, and they know the distance and how stupid that is. Why would you even fly? You could have drove just as quick.
Yeah.
Just very smart.
So when I think of him, I think of a mixture between Dean Martin and Jerry Clower. What do you think?
That's I wouldn't have thought about that. Jerry Clower is the first person. It's probably the first person I saw in person.
Yeah.
Comedy, I guess.
Yeah.
At a small community college when I was a kid. So yeah, storyteller. He's much more of a comedian. Jerry Clower, I wouldn't consider a comedian really. He's close. He's a humorist.
Yeah.
Long stories, common characters, replays the same people, the same stories. Mississippi. And then of course, Dean Martin, of course.
Right.
But Dean, he might have been a drunk, but man, he
played the part well.
He played the part, but I don't think he was, because you could tell it was a character, because when he did other things, he didn't play that character.
Yeah.
When you would see him on regular stuff. But then when he was in his comedy bit, he's in full.
He was on.
Go. Yes. That's a good mix. Storyteller with jokes, and it's not the traditional style jokes, which if I remember, like Dean was more of a, set up punch,
Yeah.
quick. So yeah, definitely. That's a good combo.
Yeah. Well, that's why I thought it was funny.
Very, very funny.
Very
He's
funny.
hilarious.